There comes a moment in every man's life when silence teaches what love tried to say, when the messages stop, when the arguments fade, when the door closes, and suddenly everything he took for granted becomes everything he wishes he had valued. It's in that moment, standing alone with the echo of her absence, that he finally understands her worth, and by then, regret doesn't knock softly. It hits with the force of truth he can't escape. Let's talk about that moment when a man finally realizes what he lost and why it changes him forever. Realization comes too late for many men because they often move through a relationship without fully understanding the quiet strength, emotional depth, and unseen efforts a good woman brings into their lives. When she is present, her love feels natural, almost automatic. Her kindness becomes routine, her support becomes expected, and her patience becomes something he assumes will always be there. He doesn't intentionally take her for granted, he simply becomes accustomed to the comfort she provides. Her presence feels like a constant, not a gift, but the moment she steps away, everything he once overlooked begins to echo in his mind with painful clarity. A woman's love often reveals itself in the smallest, softest details. She pays attention to things he doesn't even notice about himself. She remembers his dreams, even the ones he mentioned only once. She listens to his fears without judgment. She stands beside him through seasons when he feels lost, confused, or unsure of his own direction. She offers reassurance he didn't ask for but always needed. She forgives mistakes that wounded her because she believed in the man he could become. She gives energy, time, and emotion even on days when she is tired, because loving him feels like an investment in something greater. All these actions blend into the background when he is used to them, and that's where the tragedy begins. Most men don't understand the value of emotional stability until they lose the one person who kept them grounded. They don't notice how rare loyalty is until they're left surrounded by people who only show up for convenience. They don't see how her unwavering faith in them acted like fuel until the engine of their ambition starts slowing down without her. When she is there, she becomes the rhythm of his life. When she leaves, the silence becomes unbearable. The space she once filled becomes a reminder of everything he didn't notice, everything he ignored, and everything he assumed would last forever. A man begins to understand her worth only when he compares the world to the woman he lost. He realizes that no one else listens the way she did. No one cares with the same depth. No one stays with the same commitment. He starts to see that the love he thought he could easily replace is actually the kind of love that comes once in a lifetime, if it even comes at all. Her absence forces him to replay memories he once rushed through. He sees her smile differently. He hears her laughter in moments of quiet. He remembers the way she used to check on him, encourage him, and protect his heart even when he didn't protect hers. Every detail becomes a reminder of the blessing he mishandled. What hurts him most is not just losing her, it's realizing she was trying long after he stopped noticing her effort. She was communicating with actions when he stopped listening to her words. She was holding the relationship together when he assumed everything was fine. He starts to understand that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency, patience, and presence. She gave him all of that, and he didn't realize it was extraordinary. The realization often comes in stages. First comes confusion, then comes reflection, then comes regret. He begins to question why he didn't try harder, why he didn't show appreciation, why he let pride or distraction blind him to what truly mattered. He recognizes that she wasn't asking for too much. She was asking for the bare minimum: respect, effort, partnership. He understands that love requires intention, and he wasn't intentional enough. This truth hits him harder than anything else. What makes this realization painful is the understanding that she didn't leave to punish him. She left to protect herself. She outgrew the version of him that refused to meet her where she was. She stopped watering a garden he neglected. She chose peace over potential, and once a woman chooses peace, she rarely looks back. The clarity he gains afterward becomes a lesson he carries, sometimes for the rest of his life. Presence and absence carry different kinds of weight, and many men don't truly understand this until life forces the lesson on them. When she is present, her love is woven into the fabric of his everyday life. It shows up in the way she asks if he's eaten, in the way she sends a message to remind him she cares, in the way she sits beside him even when they're not talking. Her presence becomes a source of calm, even if he doesn't consciously recognize it. It becomes part of his routine, part of his rhythm, part of the air he breathes. He wakes up knowing she's there, emotionally or physically, and because she's always there, he starts believing she always will be. That's when he begins to underestimate how powerful her presence truly is. When a woman is emotionally present, she gives warmth that most men didn't even know they needed. She listens between the lines, hears moods he never speaks about, and offers comfort without being asked. She tries to soften his hard days and celebrate his small victories. She checks on the things he forgets to check on himself, his peace, his goals, his self-worth. Her presence absorbs his stress, holds his chaos, and gives him a sense of belonging he never questions while he has it. Her laughter fills the room with energy. Her empathy lifts weight off his shoulders. Her consistency becomes a silent reassurance that he is not navigating the world alone. This presence is powerful, but it is also gentle, and that gentleness is exactly what makes men overlook it. Because he sees her every day, he starts to confuse her energy for something normal. He forgets that loyalty like hers is rare. He forgets that attention like hers is intentional. He forgets that care like hers is not promised. He doesn't notice the way she picks up the emotional slack when he checks out. He doesn't appreciate how she stands strong when he falls apart. He starts assuming that she will always be the one to bend, adjust, forgive, and hold on. As long as she is present, he feels secure. But that security is an illusion built on a love he hasn't fully valued. The real shift begins when she pulls back, not dramatically, not angrily, quietly. Softly, almost invisibly at first, she stops repeating the same reminders, she stops initiating the same conversations, she stops trying to fix things he continues to break. She goes silent in places where she used to speak loudly from the heart. And that silence becomes the beginning of his awakening. A woman's absence speaks in a language louder than her voice ever could. When she no longer checks in, the emptiness inside those hours hits him. When she no longer asks how he feels, he realizes how lonely his inner world is without her. When she stops fighting for the relationship, he hears the echo of every moment she fought alone. Her absence shakes him because it forces him to face the truth he avoided. He depended on her emotional labor without ever acknowledging it. Suddenly the room feels different without her laughter. His victories feel less meaningful without her excitement. His struggles feel heavier without her comfort. He notices the silence where her support used to be. He notices the space beside him that feels colder now. He notices the messages that don't come, the affection that isn't offered, the attention that is no longer his to receive. Her absence makes him aware of everything he took for granted, everything he overlooked, everything he assumed would last forever. In her presence he felt understood. In her absence he realizes how misunderstood he now feels. In her presence he felt chosen. In her absence he feels replaceable. In her presence he felt strong. In her absence he feels exposed. Her absence becomes a mirror reflecting his own neglect back at him. He sees the ways he failed to appreciate the woman who stood by him when he didn't deserve it. He sees how much value she brought into his life simply by being there. This realization hurts because it comes when she's already detached. A woman doesn't leave emotionally overnight. She fades away in stages long before she physically walks out of his life. By the time he understands the difference between her presence and her absence, she has usually reached a point where she no longer has the energy to return. Her presence was a gift, and her absence becomes the lesson he never wanted but needed to learn. The power of a good woman is something many men underestimate until life forces them to look back. and understand what she truly brought into their world. Her power isn't loud or boastful. It doesn't announce itself with dramatic moments. Instead, it shows up in small, consistent ways that often go unnoticed. A good woman becomes a quiet force in a man's life, shaping his mindset, his peace, his ambition, and even the way he sees himself. She brings an energy that makes growth feel possible, love feel safe, and life feel more meaningful. But because her power is gentle, many men fail to recognize how much she holds everything together until she's no longer there to do it. A good woman elevates a man by believing in him in ways he never learned to believe in himself. She sees potential in parts of him that he's buried under doubt, fear, or past failures. She speaks to him with encouragement when the world speaks to him with pressure. She supports his dreams when others question his vision. Her faith becomes a foundation he stands on without realizing how much weight it carries. She is the rare person who looks at him not just for who he is, but for who he can become, and she nurtures that growth with patience. She understands his emotions even when he struggles to express them. She listens to the words he doesn't say. This emotional intelligence is a form of power that stabilizes him in ways he doesn't comprehend until he loses the anchor she provided. Her power also lives in the peace she brings. A good woman knows how to soften stormy days with kindness, calm his frustrations with understanding, and give him a sense of belonging. She turns a house into a home, a relationship into a partnership, and silence into comfort. She handles moments of conflict with maturity, choosing communication instead of chaos. Her presence becomes a safe space where he can be vulnerable without fear of judgment. Many men don't realize how rare this peace is. They confuse her calm energy for something that will always exist, not realizing it comes from her effort, emotional labor, and the depth of her love. A good woman also brings structure and balance. She helps him prioritize what truly matters. She points out when he's drifting away from his purpose. She brings clarity where he brings confusion. Sometimes her reminders feel like nagging to him, but they come from a place of wanting to see him succeed. She knows when to push him, when to support him, and when to step back and let him figure things out. She becomes part of his discipline, his motivation, and his direction. Her presence naturally inspires him to become better, and he often evolves without realizing she was the one helping him grow. Her power shows in loyalty, too. A good woman stands beside a man not only in success, but also in struggle. She stays when things get hard. She defends him in rooms he isn't in. She protects his heart, his secrets, and his weaknesses. She chooses him even during moments he doesn't choose himself. Her loyalty is deep, but it's also fragile. Once broken, it rarely returns to the same strength. Men often assume loyalty is guaranteed, but it is a privilege earned through care and consistency. Another part of her power lies in the softness she brings, a softness that many men crave but don't always know how to handle. She loves with intention, gives affection freely, and nurtures without expecting anything extravagant in return. Her tenderness is a strength, not a weakness, but it becomes painful when it is misused or ignored. When a man overlooks this softness or takes advantage of it, he unintentionally drains the very warmth that once sustained him. Only later does he realize that no one else loves with that depth, no one else gives with that purity, and no one else understands him the way she did. A good woman is not easily replaced because her impact is not surface level. It is emotional, spiritual, mental, and even transformative. She pours into a man in ways that change his life, shape his future, and influence his character. When she leaves, he doesn't just lose a partner. He loses a teammate, a healer, a supporter, a friend, and often the best version of himself. It's only then that the full power of who she was begins to shine through the emptiness she leaves behind. Regret hits harder than most emotions because it doesn't show up when everything is falling apart. It shows up after the damage is already done. When a man loses a woman who was real, loyal, and deeply invested in him, Regret becomes the echo of everything he didn't appreciate in time. It creeps in slowly, in quiet moments when he's alone, replaying memories he once didn't pay attention to. It reminds him of the conversations he cut short, the feelings he dismissed, the chances he ignored, and the effort he failed to give back. Regret becomes a mirror that forces him to face what he refused to see. She was never asking for perfection, only for presence. At first, he might not even notice the absence. Life continues, distractions fill the space, pride tells him he'll be fine. But as days pass, something starts to feel off. The world seems louder, relationships feel emptier, and connections feel surface level. He tries to move on, but no matter who he talks to or how busy he becomes, there's a heaviness following him. That heaviness is regret settling in. It whispers to him during quiet nights and early mornings, reminding him that he had something rare and mishandled it. Regret hits hard because it highlights the difference between what he had and what he now has. He remembers how she spoke to him with patience when he was stressed, how she stood by him when others drifted away, how she forgave him even when he gave her reasons not to. He remembers the way she made him feel understood, supported, and chosen. No one else gives him that same feeling, and he begins to realize how irreplaceable her energy truly was. He starts to understand that love like hers wasn't ordinary. It was intentional, steady, and unconditional. And knowing he may never experience it again becomes a pain deeper than he expected. Every memory becomes a lesson he wishes he had learned earlier. He thinks about the times she tried to communicate her needs, the moments she asked for effort, and the small signs she showed when she was hurting. Instead of listening, he brushed them aside, thinking she would always stay because she always had before. Now he understands that she wasn't being dramatic or demanding. She was reaching out, asking him to care enough to change, pleading for the connection she was fighting to keep alive alone. Regret grows even stronger when he realizes she didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because she got tired of being the only one holding things together. That realization breaks him because it forces him to confront the truth. He didn't lose her to another man. He lost her to the man he refused to become. She didn't walk away for lack of love. She walked away for lack of effort. She chose herself because he didn't choose her when she needed him most. The hardest part is understanding that she didn't want perfection. She wanted consistency. She wanted effort. She wanted him to show her that the relationship mattered. But he grew comfortable, thinking her loyalty was permanent. When she finally chose her peace over the pain, regret hit him like a wave he couldn't outrun. And once a good woman detaches emotionally, nothing a man says afterward can bring back the version of her that tried so hard. Regret also hurts because it reveals his own shortcomings. It forces him to face the emotional laziness, pride, distractions, or immaturity that cost him a woman who would have given him the world. He starts questioning himself, wondering why he didn't treat her better, why he didn't listen more, why he didn't fight for her the way she fought for him. These questions haunt him because he knows the answers, but they're answers he can no longer change. A man can fix mistakes, but he can't rewind time. When friends tell him he'll find someone new, he smiles on the outside but knows inside that replacements don't heal regret. He knows her love was rare, her loyalty was real, and her intentions were pure. He realizes she wasn't just a chapter in his life. She was the turning point he failed to turn toward. Regret becomes the cost of taking her for granted, and once it settles in, it stays. It teaches him in the harshest way that a good woman is not lost easily, but once lost, she is rarely found again. Growth through pain is one of the most difficult but transformative realities a man faces when he loses a woman who truly cared for him. When everything is going well, there is little reason to reflect, to question, or to change. Comfort hides flaws, routine hides neglect, and pride hides responsibility. But when she walks away, when the phone stops ringing, when her presence is no longer part of his daily life, Pain begins to carve out space where growth was once resisted. At first, it feels overwhelming, confusing, even unfair. He wonders how something that felt so familiar could suddenly disappear. But gradually, that pain becomes the teacher he never wanted but desperately needed. The first lesson pain teaches him is awareness. Not awareness of her absence alone, but awareness of his own behavior. He begins to replay moments where he dismissed her feelings, ignored her efforts, or treated her loyalty as something guaranteed. Pain sharpens those memories, making them clearer than they ever were while she was still there. He starts to understand that what he once saw as small issues were actually signs of a woman trying to save a relationship he wasn't fully participating in. Awareness becomes unavoidable because pain refuses to let him look away from the truth. The second thing pain teaches him is accountability. It strips away excuses, ego, and justification. He can no longer blame her, circumstances, timing, or stress. Pain forces him to see that he had control over how he treated her, and he failed to value her the way she deserved. This realization is harsh, but necessary. Accountability becomes his first step toward becoming a better version of himself. He understands that losing her was not an accident. It was the result of choices he made or didn't make. Pain becomes the mirror reflecting the man he was and pushing him toward the man he should have been. Pain also pushes him to confront emotional patterns he ignored for years. Maybe he avoided vulnerability because of past wounds. Maybe he struggled to communicate because he never learned how. Maybe he took her for granted because he thought consistency meant permanence. Pain exposes these patterns like cracks in a foundation. It shows him where he needs to heal, where he needs to grow, and where he needs to take responsibility for his own emotional maturity. This process is uncomfortable, but it forces him to face parts of himself he hid even from her. As the days turn into weeks, pain begins transforming into reflection. He starts to question why he didn't appreciate her patience, why he minimized her concerns, why he treated her love as something ordinary. He realizes she was offering him guidance, partnership, and emotional safety, things many men search for but never find. Reflection becomes a form of growth because it teaches him to recognize the difference between real love and superficial affection. He begins to see that what he lost is not easily replaced, and that truth becomes a turning point in his emotional evolution. Pain also teaches him empathy. When he finally understands how deeply his actions affected her, he becomes more aware of others' feelings in future relationships. He learns to listen instead of dismiss, to speak instead of withdraw, and to appreciate instead of assume. He becomes more conscious of the emotional weight words and actions carry. Empathy grows from the soil of regret, making him more considerate, more understanding, and more emotionally responsible. Another layer of growth comes from learning patience. Pain slows him down, forces him to sit with his emotions, and prevents him from hiding behind distractions. He learns to feel instead of suppress, to acknowledge instead of escape. This emotional patience becomes a strength that shapes him into someone more grounded and self-aware. He begins to approach relationships with more intention, understanding that love isn't something to be taken lightly or handled carelessly. Eventually, pain teaches him gratitude, not just for her, but for the experience itself. He starts appreciating the lessons she unknowingly gifted him: how to love better, how to communicate, how to show up, how to be present. Gratitude becomes part of his growth because he realizes her departure wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of a new chapter where he becomes someone capable of giving the kind of love she once tried to give him. Growth through pain is never easy, but it is powerful. It reshapes him, matures him, humbles him, and prepares him. It teaches him that losing a good woman is not just a heartbreak, it is an awakening. The pain becomes the lesson, and the lesson becomes the transformation he never knew he needed. A woman who knows her worth carries herself with a certain quiet strength that cannot be shaken by neglect, excuses, or half-hearted love. She may love deeply, and she may give endlessly, but she is not blind to the truth. She notices when effort fades, when communication becomes careless, and when appreciation turns into assumption. Even though she stays loyal longer than she should, she also carries the wisdom to walk away when the relationship begins to drain her instead of grow her. Her worth is not built on how much she can endure, it's built on how much she chooses to honor herself. And when she reaches the point where she realizes she is giving more love than she is receiving, everything changes. A woman who knows her worth doesn't leave impulsively, she leaves intentionally. Before walking away, she tries, truly tries. She communicates, explains, forgives, adjusts, and invests. She gives chances not because she is weak, but because she genuinely wants the relationship to work. She believes in what she is building, and she believes in the man she loves. But every time her effort goes unnoticed, every time her feelings are brushed aside, she quietly stores the memory, not to hold it against him later, but to understand the pattern she refuses to repeat forever. Her worth teaches her that love should be mutual, respect should be consistent, and effort should be shared. A man often mistakes her patience for permanence. He thinks she will always be there because she has always been there. He becomes comfortable, maybe even careless, assuming she will continue to tolerate what hurts her. He doesn't realize that while she may stay longer than most, she also leaves faster than he expects once she hits her emotional limit. When she finally chooses herself, the shift is silent but final. She doesn't explode. She doesn't argue endlessly. She doesn't plead for change. She simply stops fighting for someone who won't fight for her. That's when he feels the change, not in her words, but in her absence. Her worth is reflected in the standards she holds for herself. She knows she deserves respect, consistency, love that feels like partnership, and a man who wants to grow with her rather than make her carry the relationship alone. She knows she deserves someone who listens when she speaks, someone who values her presence, someone who doesn't wait until she's gone to realize what she meant. Her worth doesn't make her arrogant, it makes her aware. Aware of the energy she gives, the energy she receives, and the energy that no longer aligns with her peace. When she walks away, it is rarely out of anger, it is out of clarity. She finally understands that staying would cost her more than leaving. She realizes that no matter how much she loves him, she cannot love herself less just to keep him comfortable. This clarity is what makes her departure so powerful. She doesn't leave because she wants to hurt him. She leaves because she refuses to continue hurting herself. She chooses healing over hoping, peace over potential, self-respect over attachment. And once she makes that choice, she doesn't go back to the version of herself that tolerated what she now recognizes as emotional neglect. For the man who loses her, that moment becomes a turning point. He begins to understand the depth of her value only when he sees what life feels like without her. He realizes she wasn't asking for too much. She was asking for basic partnership, honesty, effort, and emotional presence. He sees that she wasn't trying to control him, she was trying to grow with him, and he finally understands that she didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because she started loving herself more. That truth is often the hardest one to accept. The beauty of a woman who knows her worth is that she doesn't close her heart, she simply protects it. Her departure becomes the reminder a man needed, often too late, that good women don't wait forever. Her worth becomes the lesson he learns in her silence. She moves forward, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much to stay in a place that no longer made her feel valued. Her worth becomes her guidance, her shield, and her direction. And any man who encounters her after she has learned this lesson will meet a woman not easily impressed, not easily swayed, and not easily forgotten. In the end, the truth becomes undeniable. A man only understands the depth of a woman's worth when he is forced to face life without the love. Patience and presence he once took for granted. Her strength, her loyalty, her guidance, and her peace were never ordinary. They were gifts, gifts he didn't recognize until the silence revealed everything her voice had been trying to teach him. Regret becomes the shadow of every moment he overlooked, but growth becomes the path he must walk now. Losing her is not just a loss of love, it is the lesson that shapes him into someone wiser, someone more self-aware, someone capable of appreciating what he once failed to see. And even though the pain is real, the transformation that follows proves that sometimes a heartbreak is not the end. It is the beginning of becoming a man who finally understands the value of what he had.